Live from the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios and the Gurkha Cigar Studios in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tobacco and Pat Chamberlain.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTabacco.com, and I'm joined once again by my good co-host. Sorry, I don't know. There we go. I seem to have. It's coming to my attention now that there's a small loose connection in the gain switch on the microphone mixer, which is weird. That's weird. It was just working okay. There we go. It seems to be a little bit better. But anyway, welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. Mr. Pat Chamberlain is here in the Gurkha Cigar Studios. Patrick, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired and exhausted. It has just been, as people I'm sure know and been following along, we've just had a lot going on over here, and it is just a constant battle. But we're here for another show. Obviously, we never miss a Wednesday night. Sometimes we do, but usually we don't.
Very miss one.
Yeah. No, so we're here. I'm excited. I haven't had a cigar all week for the most part. So now is my night to have a quick one with you on the show. As I say that, I forgot I didn't put on the ventilation. But how are things with you, Pat? You've been quiet, and I figured, I gotta check in on you, see how you're doing. And I mean, I know you're known as the quiet one, but still, I know how to get you going. I should say that I know how to get you going. I just haven't really been making a good effort at that lately.
Yeah, you've been failing in that department.
I have. I take full responsibility. That's on me. It's
a two-way relationship here, Matt.
I know. Well, I was gonna say it's been a while. It's been a while since I've heard a gripe of the week from Pat. I mean, in the beginning, it was pretty steady. And I haven't heard any good stories lately. And now I'm just sitting here wondering, like, does Pat have any gripes right now that I don't know about?
I'll give that one some thought, and I'll see if I can think of something.
Wow, that tells me if you have to think about it, then Pat has been undisturbed for the most part in his life. I mean, last time it was the damn coffee in the courtroom. I remember that whole shakedown. You were quiet, and I brought that up, and then all of a sudden it was like some different guy came in. I mean, you were on a roll there. Although I don't dare bring that up because I'm sure it still boils your blood. Especially now. I know you're much thicker into the weeds with stuff at work, so I can only imagine the lack of coffee in the courtroom. It's got to be getting to you.
I just chug coffee in the morning, and it's like a gas tank, right?
Yeah.
Go doing and then just deal with it. Yeah, I wish there was coffee in the courtroom. I still don't know why that's a thing, but it's one of those big mysteries. Like. You're just never gonna know. At least in New Hampshire, I think at some courts you can do it.
Are you rocking a Guinness right now?
Fucking right, bud.
Wow, good for you. I usually keep Guinness on tap here in the lounge. Well, not on tap, but you know what I mean. I stock it in the fridge, in the beer fridge. I don't really drink a lot of it. Nicole's brother loves it when he's here for a night or the weekend. I'll usually have about 6 cans on hand, and they're usually gone by the time he leaves. So, and then I go and I get more. But yeah, we usually have it on tap. If I had known, I probably would have pulled one out to share with you. I also haven't really eaten in the past 2 days, so my stomach's feeling a little light. And I know what you're thinking, like, no, don't do it on a light stomach. But yes. I'm willing to roll the dice. It'll probably just, hit me a little bit more. So that'd be nice. And I could use it, to be honest with you. I really could. Now, it is that time of the show. Not necessarily that there is a time, but I see what you're smoking, and I want to talk about it. So now I'm just gonna go right into this. Our cigars, once again, brought to you by the number 2 guyscigars.com. That's right, the number 2 Guys Cigars. Head over there today for an amazing selection of cigars and accessories from so many brands you know and love, and maybe a few new ones. Head over there today and order some cigars from the great people at the number 2 guyscigars.com. And as always, cutting and lighting with us is our friends from ST Dupont, featuring, I have my my black Maxi Jet from ST Dupont. This is the Old Faithful. This is the one that you keep in the pocket all the time. For the most part, I think it's common. I think this might be one of the more common ST Dupont lighters. One of the more affordable ones. It's, single jet. Most people like a jet lighter, unless you're a Dupont, a line 2 guy and you like the soft flame. But always shaking up the legacy here at Smokin Tabacco. But speaking of 2 Guys Cigars, what are you smoking with us tonight? I know the answer already, but I gotta get this out here.
Yes, I'm smoking 2025 release of the Tatuaje pork tenderloin. They hit shops this past week.
Yeah, I was gonna say, some shops are still like getting them in, but yeah, they started to really hit stores last week. So, you've smoked some of the older ones, right?
Yeah, I've smoked every release, original through to this point.
Now, and I know given our ages, when the original ones dropped, we didn't smoke them fresh out of the pack, but we have smoked them.
Yeah.
How does that one stand up to the others?
This was a general consensus of everyone I've spoken to that smoked it. I think it's young. It's good, but it's not great. But it has like when you smoke something and it's gonna be a really good. It's gonna age really well. It's a good blend. It just needs a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, I have this with Coop all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. If you I buy a handful of them, smoke one now, and sit on it. I bet you I'd estimate even in 6 months, you'll see a big difference between the initial smoke and then 6 months out. And then you just go a year or 2 or 3 years down the road, then it's just going to be a killer cigar. It just has a lot of potential, you can tell.
Yeah. I've had this argument with Coop so many times because I'll smoke something and I know it's good. Even if I know, hey, age is probably going to help it, I know enough to know, this is a good cigar and, it's just rolling out. And, when it's, really out there and it's been, it's going to get better. And I tell Coop, and he's like, I smoked it and, it wasn't good. And I'm like, okay. And then 9 times out of 10, exactly 6 months later, I get the message. Well, something, you were right, I have to say. And I'll be like, I know I was right, but remind me what I was right about. And then he'll tell me, and I'll be like, oh yeah, see, he's like, these are smoking great. I'm like, yeah, I know. So, I can see that. I guess, I don't know. I don't know why I want to say surprised. I feel like in my experience, Pete's stuff usually doesn't come out that way fresh off the boat. Correct me if I'm wrong if you had that experience many times before, but for the most part, usually with his stuff, when it first drops, it's usually pretty solid in that regard. But there's a lot of reasons, and I don't doubt that what you said is true. It's got broadleaf on it. It's there's a lot of flavor there, and there's a lot to mellow out. And one of the things I did notice, and I don't have them in my possession yet, but just from the photos and stuff that I see, and thinking back to the older ones that I've had, I feel like the wrapper on that is significantly darker than the older ones.
It is. That was the first observation I made.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Yeah, it looks like a Verico red. Obviously the band, but the shade of the cigar. It's, which is good. Broadly, if I found, the darker it is, the richer it gets. The better fermentation. But
sure.
it's high quality tobacco. You can taste it. It's just it's not quite there like when it comes to ripeness. But I found that with Tatuaje, the past couple years, his limited releases have been young upon shipment, and that's just. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, right? Like, I mean, especially the Monster is like, the Monster's always late coming out because production's behind, whether it's boxes, tobacco, the cigars.
Right.
Um, So I found that they've been shipping it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, you have people that swear by Cubans, and that's just what it is. You buy them, you smoke it, and then you sit on it, you smoke it again, like a couple weeks, few months later, it's better. You just keep kind of going through that process, and so it's not a bad thing, and it's not Pete cutting corners or anything. It's just it's a decision. Like we're gonna ship these out at this period. If you know about cigars, but I think a lot of people who buy, the pork tenderloin are cigar snobs because I mean, at least at Twins, like if you didn't buy it within 24 hours, it's sold out in a day. So the people that know what it is are the ones who are getting it, at least in my experience here. So it's knowledgeable enough consumers that they know to give cigars like this some time. So
Yeah, I mean, Tatuaje is one of those brands that they have a regular following, but they also have a dedicated cult following. And Pete has a lot of limited production, limited releases, limited editions, etc. And the pork tenderloin, out of all of them, is I think one of the ones that kind of gets some of the most praise when you look at the annals of history with Tatuaje in terms of some of these releases. And I mean, I definitely think there's people are going to flock to it. They're going to sell it quickly. That's not a question. But it'll be interesting to see what people think, right out of the gate and as time goes on. But yeah, and I think that by the end of the year, I mean it's going to be one of the ones that people talk about. It's just without even having smoked it yet. I mean, I know how this industry is, and I know how people are, and I know how it goes. That's going to be one of those ones people are raving about. Now, Tatuaje, in their defense, they have a lot of stuff that's coming out this year, so they're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about probably by the end of the year, which we've been talking a little bit about the last couple of weeks, since the trade show happened, after we saw what's new for releases and what's coming out this year and stuff like that. So we've already made some predictions and assumptions, and there's still a long road to end of the year stuff. But so far, I have to say this, and you weren't with us last year, but I know you were working in the store, so you probably can answer this in your own way, probably different from how I will. But this time last year, honestly, this time 2 years ago, and there we go. I lost you. Sorry.
good.
Let me back up a little bit. Sorry. I was gonna say I know you were in a retail store last year. You weren't with us, so you can probably answer this probably a little bit differently. But I know you'll probably have a good answer. This time last year, even the last 2 years, this time, and honestly, at the end of the year too. More so 2023. 2023 end of the year was a tricky list to put together, for a lot of reasons. And I know, speaking with some of the other media sites, they had a hard time too. And the reason being, just what came out and what was available and what actually scored high and stuff like that. And I have to say, so far this year, it's been probably the best year in the last couple of years in terms of being excited about stuff going into the end of the year, and prospects of high-ranking cigars and stuff that's going to score high and stuff that might win Cigar of the Year and stuff like that. So I'm excited for this year to see how the rest of the cards fall. But yeah, the last 2 years, more so 2023, I think it was. I always get the years kind of jumbled because, yeah, I want to say it was the 2023 list was probably one of the most difficult lists we put together. And then last year's was tough, but wasn't as bad. It's just because there wasn't a lot of like when you get to the end and you look back, it was like we talked about it amongst ourselves, and it was like, well, there's really, I mean, like there's a lot of cigars that come out, and there's a lot of cigars people talked about, and then there's everything we reviewed and we scored, and then you re-smoke stuff, and you're trying to put a list together, and it. I remember we had a hard time, and then I started talking to some of the other guys, and they're like, we're having a little bit of a hard time too with our list. Just because, look, I'll just come out and say it. There wasn't a lot of really super exciting things. Last year got a little bit better. It was a little. It wasn't my favorite year, but it was better than the year before. So, and I don't know. Working in the humidor. I know you weren't really putting a list together per se, but being in the humidor in terms of stuff that was coming out the last 2 years. Did you kind of get that vibe from customers coming in the store? Were they gravitating more towards existing inventory versus the newer stuff? Did you not notice it? I guess I'm curious to see what you thought of releases from the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an upward trend. I mean, I think 2023 was okay. I think there were less brands that were doing really exciting things. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there were certainly some notable releases, right? Like, Saka had a good year. He had the Papa Saka come out that year. I want to say Papa Saka came out, and this other one. There's always something that comes out. I think that was the.
Which year? 20. Well, yeah. What year was that? Was that 23? I think that was 23.
22 was the Saka Con. 23
yes.
was Papa Saka.
Yeah.
And there was some excitement. I mean, Christoph had the Trisca Padres come out.
That was a great cigar.
Nicaragua came out, so Christoph did really well that year. I mean, the Papas Fritas came out. I believe that scored well. Like the Papas Frita H99. That scored well.
It did. I believe it was in our top 5 that year.
And then you had like the Night Commander. That was an exciting one from Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So there was certainly some good cigars that's worth getting excited about. Although it just wasn't a lot of volume. Like I think and then 2024 was similar to that. There were some exciting releases. Saka had more volume, and I mean every year he's an upward trend of releases. So he's kind of a minority industry, but. Perdomo had the black get re-released as something that's a little bit more there. I mean, the Fuente Perdomo came out, so there was some exciting releases last year as well. But this year certainly is different. It's there's a lot of quality cigars coming out. There's a lot of cigars that have a lot of hype behind them, and it's a lot of brands kind of having exciting things. I mean. It seems like every day there's something announced or something shipping. Like I saw that the JFR anniversary is getting shipped. I think that's going to be a good cigar people enjoy.
The 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just there's a lot of good cigars this year, and I think this is going to be amongst the entire media portion of the industry an exciting list this year because there's a lot of competition, and I think it's going to be. It's not going to be similar to last year. I found like a lot of the lists had the same kind of cigars, whether or not they were ranked the same. I mean, Perdomo was pretty consistent in being in the top 5 of a lot of lists. I think this year it's going to be really skewed because I think there's a lot of good cigars coming out, and it's going to be interesting. And I think brands that secure those top spots on lists are going to think a little bit differently this year because there's a lot of competition. And it's just not. I mean, we've talked in the past, when you get to the first half of your list, the second half, you're kind of it's hard because you're well, what actually came out this year? What even qualifies for this? And then you go through that, you do the re-smokes, and you kind of decide. But it's always difficult, thinking of what actually came out. But this year, I mean, we're only just entering quarter 2, and we're halfway through quarter 2, a little more than halfway through quarter 2, and there's already enough cigars that were released to almost make a list, right? So there's a lot of stuff coming out, and I haven't had a bad cigar yet that's been released. So it's an exciting year for sure.
I would agree with that. especially the last part. I haven't had a cigar yet. Stuff that's come out, like all the new stuff for this year. Everything I've smoked so far, there wasn't anything that I thought was, no. Like, I was not severely disappointed by anything. Everything, for the most part, or better, was good. Drew Estate's new Deadwood cigar, that, the Dominicana, while it's not something I would normally smoke, I've smoked a couple of them. For what it is, I think it's good, and I think that customer is going to enjoy that cigar, especially someone who's used to smoking Drew Estate. It'll be different, a change of pace, if you will. Again, not something I would smoke all the time, but I give it a lot of props. I think it went well, and that was, I think, so far that's really the only new thing they have. I haven't gotten to Aladino's new stuff yet, but I know you have, and I know you've talked highly about that. And that's next on my list. I've really enjoyed, for a long time I've really enjoyed Aladino. Both of the Aroas, everything they do, Justo and Christian. But especially Aladino, I've really enjoyed, everything that they've done, and I'm excited to try that. And I haven't gotten to it yet. It's on my list, but I've been in a reduced smoking capacity, lately, just with everything that I've had to deal with. So I'm a little bit behind, but things have a way of working themselves out, and then I'll get to a point where I'll be smoking a shit ton of cigars every night again, and I'll get myself caught up very quickly. So until then, I can't talk about the majority of the releases, and plus there's stuff that's just not out yet, which is good because it buys me some time. But yeah, no, I'm excited for that JFR Lunatic, the 20th anniversary. That's a good one. I actually think I have some. I have to double check, but I think I have some. I just haven't smoked them yet. Accessory wise, not to come off this conversation completely, I want to stop and pivot just for a moment, because the thought just came to me and I didn't want to forget about it. But accessory wise, I mean, it's been an interesting year seeing some of the stuff that all the companies are coming out with. However, as everybody knows, this is also the year of tariffs. So, and I feel like, and I don't follow it closely, but I feel like, it's kind of been a little up and down with, like, it's going to be this much, and then it's going to be this much. And then, I guess, there was a deal struck with China, so that's lowered the Chinese tariffs again. But I don't know, I can't remember how much and how in stone that is, or how long that will last, so I don't know if that's anything to, like, plan your year on. But I am curious to see, as this year continues to unfold, kind of how that market does. Because, look, people still need cutters and lighters and ashtrays and stuff like that, but at the same time, people have what, I think most smokers have what they need on a day-to-day basis. If they break a lighter, a cheap lighter, they're gonna buy a new one, because they need it. I would say it's the non-necessity accessories that I think you might see probably a sharp decline in this year, based on price increases from tariffs and stuff like that. More of your fancier products and limited edition products and stuff like that. Most of that stuff comes from China. I don't know if there's any other countries over in Asia that make anything, but from what I understand, about 90% of all of the accessories are made in China. So, I know Dupont sent out an email last week or something saying something about, the tariffs, the deal with China and this and that, and, it was, better than they hoped for and stuff like that. But I know still, I keep in touch with all the, accessories manufacturers, and the people I've talked to said they're still working on dealing with tariff stuff. So that's going to be a challenge for them this year. And I know, obviously, look, that doesn't mean it doesn't affect the cigar manufacturers, because it has. I mean, we've seen price increase after price increase the last few months, and most of them have, attributed to, the tariff increase. So, not that it hasn't impacted them either, and I'd like to know at the end of the year how it did affect the cigar sales. But I think the brunt of it is going to be felt by the accessories market. But it will be. But either way, it will be interesting to see how that affects the cigar sales as well. I don't know if I know you're not as active at Twins anymore, but have you heard, or just or what about how things have been since the tariff started? Has there been a decline in cigar buying at the store because of tariffs? Things going up, or are people taking note to it, or is it really kind of unaffected customers at this point?
I don't think it's really impacted anything. I mean, it's a lot of the people that smoke cigars. I don't think are just going to stop smoking because of tariffs. I mean, like, whether or not certain brands and price points are being affected, I wouldn't have that knowledge, not being in the humidor every day.
Right.
But I just don't see that being a major impact. And then as to the accessories, if there's any impact, I think it's going to be on like the middle tier accessories. Like for instance, like the Cyclones are like $15.
Yeah.
If that does go up, like even if it's like an $18 lighter, I don't think it's going to have any impact on that consumer buying it. And then if you're buying a premium, for instance, Dupont lighter, I don't think the increase, even if it's $100 increase, is going to be a difference for that type of consumer. I think it's going to be the middle ground. So I would say DuPont's Jets, those will be impacted because it's the middle tier, right? Like it's the stuff that's made in China, and just that'll be a make or break for some people. But I mean, I haven't seen a big, if any, increase in the accessories at Twins, at least. Now that could just be because they're not increasing the prices yet, like through their store. I don't know if I haven't seen that yet. That's not to say it hasn't happened. That's just from my small globe of going into Twins. But and then when it comes to we haven't talked about humidors and ashtrays again. Like it'll be that middle class consumer. Not middle class consumer, but that middle class kind of accessories. Like
the middle tier.
Yeah, like the $100 to $200 range type stuff.
Yeah.
I think that potentially get impacted, if anything at all. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. And I have no facts to back this up, but I would imagine too that there's probably some consumers that see this as an opportunity to, I said manufacturers, not consumers, they see this as an opportunity to do their annual price increase and just blame it on something other than just increasing the price.
Well,
I wonder how people are doing that, but.
That's funny because I've seen in the little bit of time I've spent on social media, I've seen discussions come about on that very particular topic. Manufacturers are raising prices and saying, the tariffs, forced our hand. And then, the tariffs have changed. In some countries, the tariffs, they came back down. They lowered, whatever. By the end of the year, let's say all these countries, they make deals, with the U.S. and the tariffs either get, dropped or removed or whatever, significantly decreased. Well, now it's not as expensive for you to import cigars anymore because, the tariff price is either gone or it's extremely low. So it's like, do you lower the price back down? I think most manufacturers probably won't.
And that's the conversation that I think is going to be big whenever the tariffs go away, because I haven't seen a price increase recently that is regarding like an annual cost increase through manufacturing. It's all citing tariffs. So if that's the grounds and the basis for the increase, you would think that at some point, I don't think it'll be immediately after, because the effects of something like that, it's just, you don't just snap your finger and then you just can start lowering and adapting to the prices, because it has longer effects than just in that moment. But maybe late next year, like if you don't see any decreases, assuming the tariff, we don't know how long this is going to be, right? But just pretend they ended tomorrow, right? A year from now, you'd expect to see some kind of reaction to it, and maybe they don't go down completely, because there is always an annual increase just in general. But I just wonder, there might be some kickback on that, because if you're citing tariffs and the tariffs go away, you would expect at some point there'd be some decrease.
Well, the other thing that I find interesting, to your point, in my conversations with, a bunch of different manufacturers over the last couple of years, stuff would come out and, price would come up, and or just whatever, just in conversations, and I've heard more often than not, actually, And I don't know if this is across the board or if it's just specific products, but in conversations, people say, oh well, we're going to eat the cost on that, because this is a great cigar. We really want to offer it at this price point, and we think it'll pay off. And you're like, oh yeah, that's great. Now the tariffs thing happens, so things go up even more. So my point being, there's been manufacturers, that have had some rising costs, and they've made the decision to eat that cost in an effort to not raise prices, even if they're taking a little bit less back in their pocket, to keep the consumers, excited and happy with the price point, and hoping that, well, this cigar is going to be so popular that even at that price point, we just sell enough of them where it's justifiable in the end. And I think for some manufacturers, or for a good decent amount, I think, just roughly thinking of a couple that skimmed through my mind, it probably was the case. They probably did pretty well. The ones I think about and some of the stuff they released, just, like I said, very quickly. I'm sure others maybe didn't go that way, but they did good sales, and they were happy with it. But now you have some of those same manufacturers that said, hey, we're going to eat the cost on this, and you just keep, putting out some great cigars. Now this happens. Now you force your hand to increase prices because you get this other external thing now that's obviously, costing so much more. So you have manufacturers who are already kind of a little bit, I don't want to use the term behind on the price increase, but they were already in a spot. This definitely forced their hand. So now they have this, all right, well, we definitely have to raise our prices now because of this. And back to your original point with, well, tariffs go away, there's going to be pushback. Those manufacturers who already have been eating costs that were now forced to raise those prices, higher, do they come back down? Because, you don't, it's like, do you go back to losing money now that you already raised your prices and you kind of gotten out of that hole, and you kind of hide behind this whole, well, the tariffs thing, and then the tariffs go away, and one might argue, well, the tariffs that you guys were paying, those went away, so why are we still paying, a surcharge on this because of the thing? I think there might be a couple brave companies that do roll it back, because there's a few out there I know who I think are going to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we can do this, and I think that's great. But I think most of them, especially those guys, they're gonna try to hold their ground and be like, you know what, we were already not making as much as we wanted to, so this kind of helped us out. And assuming that in that time period, they don't obviously see a decline in sales because of that tariff price increase, but I think that's something to think about too. People who already kind of were holding back on price increases, now they definitely have to do it. Then, hypothetically, like you were saying, tariffs go away. What are those guys? Those are the people I'm really curious about. How do they react now?
And I mean, I guess the more realistic, thing, and this might be more consistent with, being a convenience for retailers, is if that happens, maybe they just don't do a price increase, like their annual price increase next year, right? Like, just keep it the way it is and slow that down. Now, that's more. Now, when it comes to the PR aspect of it, I don't know if that's a good move, just because people who don't know better might be like, they increased the price because of tariffs and they never decreased it and they're gone, not knowing that every year there's typically some kind of a manufacturing increase. So it'll be an interesting situation, but it's also one of the things that I don't think gets talked about either is brands that may be holding back, or their hand was forced to increase, is, and I think if Jay's in the chat, he probably has a lot of insight on this as well.
Jay doesn't usually make it to the Wednesday night show because he's still in the shop, but we'll definitely talk about it this weekend on Spare Notes.
Yeah,
again.
But it's, there's some brands who succeed because of their price point, and it's some of the consumers of those brands look at the price point, and even if you add the difference between $9 and $10 is just visually impactful. And I think there's some brands that when you start entering that that $11 to $15 range, I think you might lose your kind of everyday consumer. And I mean, there's certain, I can give examples of, just from my experience, you have people that smoke the Fuente 858, and it's the price point, it's like a $9 to $10. Again, no tax in Hampshire, so it's different here than other
It's different.
places.
It's different for you and I. We have
But
the luxury.
view-wise, and people smoke it. Not only is it a good cigar, but it's that is like the price point that a lot of consumers who are everyday smokers, like your average consumer, is looking to spend. And I mean that average has skewed drastically. I mean, that average cigar used to be like when I started at Twins, like $7 to $8, and now it's 9 to 10. So you do another increase to 11 or 12. That consumer might look at another brand that's cheaper, like for instance, like punch cigars are still kind of at $6 to $7, well, $5 to $7 price point. They might move to that cigar just because of the tariffs, and they don't want to spend an extra dollar every day they get a cigar. So it's definitely difficult, and it's tough. It's that's why, I mean, the tariffs. It's easy to critique and be like, everyone asking for more money and everything, but there was a lot that goes into adapting to that and trying to execute it properly. So you offset the increased costs, but also you don't upset the consumer, so there's still people who are going to buy the product. So there's a lot of moving parts to that.
Yeah, I mean it's the economics of the business, and every industry, product type, category, whatever, they all have their issues. All whether it's the food, but groceries. People talk about the price of eggs and stuff. I mean, yeah, you're gonna see stuff there. You're gonna see, on clothes and cars and just everything that everyone's spends money on. All these different things. It's all gonna. It's not like there's anything special. This is everybody's dealing with this all over the country. Every business that offers I mean, even the ones that don't sell products. I mean, but then again, most businesses sell a product some way or a service. Yeah, it's gonna be. It's going to be weird, especially coming off of the last couple of years with everything that happened after the pandemic and the rapid inflation, and then now you have this nonsense. It's like, the price of things in the last 10 years alone, like I still find myself going to the store and I buy something and I think to myself, like, shit. Like, perfect example, I was at Target the other day and I went into Target and we were walking around and we passed through the grocery area, and we don't grocery shop there, but we pass through at the Target trip, and I'll take a look at what they have, and sometimes I see interesting things. And there was a particular item that I had noticed that I've been wanting to try, and it was the Bashan's Japanese steak sauce. I use a lot of them, or the barbecue sauce. I use a lot of the different flavors and stuff. I've come very fond of that brand, and they recently came out with some new flavors and some different stuff, and they had it, and I was like, oh, they have the whatever, and Nicole was like, oh, we should try them, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at the 3 flavors that they had. I think it was the new dipping sauces they came out with, and I was standing there and I'm looking at the 3 flavors, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just get one of each and try them all and see which one I like the most. And then I remember looking at it, and they were like $8. And I was like, $8 for a bottle of sauce that's about yay big. And I was like, and I remember I was like, $8 for that thing? And then I'm like doing the math. I'm like, so if I buy 3 of them, you're telling me I got to spend $24 on 3 bottles of barbecue sauce? And I was just like, wow, that's ridiculous. I was like, I remember you could probably buy all 3 of those for $8. And it's just like, you think about some of the things you do, you don't think about it for whatever reason. But then, like, every once in a while, like, you find such a basic item in the store, and you're just like, wow, that's a lot. It's a lot for what it is. And even like eggs, you look at the price of eggs sometimes, and you're just like, it's fucking eggs. Like, you used to be able to buy eggs for a couple of bucks. That was it. Now some stores, it's like $9.99 for a dozen jumbo, and it's just like, what the fuck, And of course that kind of effect, I'm sure, is filtered into the cigar business too. Some customers going into humidors and they see certain things on the shelf, and if they're paying attention to the price and not just going like, oh yeah, I like these, I'm just gonna grab them. You look at some of those cigars and you just go like, damn, I remember when I used to buy these for $7 and now they're like 11, 12 more. Now you mentioned Fuentes products. I remember when a lot of their core line was like under $10. times have definitely changed, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, that's just what are you gonna do? I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. So I think, long story short, I think it's going to be interesting to see it from all aspects, but the manufacturers definitely, I know, are spending a lot of time watching this and figuring this out. When I talk to them, it's always like, oh, the tariffs and the pricing and this and that. They're so consumed by it, and I get why. As a business owner, when stuff like that just kind of falls into your lap, you have to figure it out and then hope for the best. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the theme of the year, or one of the themes of the year is price point on stuff and how it's changed with tariffs and all that. And there's already been some manufacturers that have fumbled with it or created controversy with how they did it and stuff like that. We'll probably talk more about that on Saturday, but I know Coop had a couple of points on that. I don't remember if we got to him or not, but if we didn't, we'll get back to him again. But yeah, I mean, in that regard, I know we kind of went off on the tangent there, but it's one of those things that it's kind of hard to ignore, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so getting back to the general consensus. First of all, this is another question I had for you. How many of those pork tenderloins have you smoked already? Because I know you had one the other day because you told me you were smoking one.
I think I had 4 now.
Damn, you smoke quick.
Well, I've had like 1 every day so far.
Yeah.
Since I got them.
Now, here's the other thing I wanted to ask you about. So last time you were on, you hadn't had any of the Perdomo Legacy, and I know you're currently working on a review of one of them. So I know you've begun to smoke them. So
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to give away too much before your review comes out, but I'm also just eager to know, like, with what you smoked, what were your thoughts so far?
So, I mean, this isn't like a shocking comment, but I was impressed by the construction on. So I've had 2 samples. I'm on the 3rd one still.
Mm-hmm.
And both of the samples I had were just really great construction. And I'm somebody who typically steers away from a Bellicoso or Torpedo because the room for error is smaller. So I hate, like, the worst thing for me is a tight draw. Even if it's smokable, I just don't like tight draws.
I'm right there with you.
And it's more often to happen, obviously, in a Torpedo or Bellicoso. So I typically steer away from them. But when I get a good one, it's an enjoyable smoke. And both of the samples have had beautiful, beautiful construction. And one of the notable things that, as a cigar geek, I appreciate is so, I mean, this is the thing. And this is the unique thing about that wrapper leaf that I, right off the bat, put a lot of detail into and initial thoughts on the cigar, which I'm not going to give away everything I said, but so, I mean, just general tobacco talk here. When it comes to the Connecticut wrapper leaf, you have primarily Ecuadorian Connecticut and you have true American Connecticut. So Connecticut seed grown in different climates. Connecticut is grown under shade because there's too much sunlight in Connecticut River Valley to grow a light, like, nice kind of mild wrapper leaf. Yeah. So the result of that is it's a beautiful, consistent, light tan wrapper. And it's like, that's true Connecticut. And then you have Ecuadorian Connecticut where they don't use cheesecloth because there's natural cloud coverage. So that wrapper leaf gets a little bit more sun. So the result of that is it's kind of like a dark, patchy tan. It's still a nice looking wrapper. It's smooth, but it has that kind of darker, cloudy, hue of color consistent throughout the wrapper. Now, the Perdomo Legacy uses that Nicaraguan. It's a Nicaraguan Connecticut, right?
The Nicaraguan shade grown.
Shade grown. So I'm assuming we had Nick on the show and he talked about it. He probably said this, and I just, there's a lot of things I was trying to get the memory that he was saying, is he's very knowledgeable and it's hard to absorb everything he says because it's just so much. I believe they do cheesecloth with that cigar. And
I
I mean, I
think
think
they do too. I think they do
they would
too.
have, and it's other than Connecticut. I mean, they've done a great job getting that close to true Connecticut. I mean, it's different. It's spicier, but it has that same kind of soft creaminess to it. It's a little bit less hay. Ecuadorian Connecticut to me has more of that hay and kind of like a little bit of a vegetal mineral kind of taste to it, which I like. But the Nicaraguan Connecticut that they're growing it's like a mix of the two. It's a more refined Ecuadorian, if that makes sense. It has that spice, it has that creaminess, it has that sweetness, but it doesn't have like that hay and that mineral. So it's unique. It's definitely a unique cigar, and that's what he was going for. But then the interior, it has that Perdomo DNA, as you said. Like it's very, like you could have that cigar, and I mean Perdomo has a unique shape to it. You know, they have typically thicker gauge cigars.
Yeah.
If you took that fact out of it, you just gave that to somebody who's a Perdomo smoker, not telling them it's a Perdomo, and say like the shape of the cigar wasn't noticeable to them, they would say that's a Perdomo. It has that DNA. It has that unique Perdomo family taste and aroma. But that wrapper is very unique, and it's a good it's a one of the best Connecticut's other than True Connecticut I've smoked, wrapper quality wise. And it makes it. I'm interested to see how the sun grown and Maduro is, because again, Perdomo's known.
Well, there
for
is no
sun.
sun grown. It's just
Oh,
Connecticut, Nicaraguan. So it's the Connecticut with the Nicaraguan. I believe they use the Nicaraguan shade grown in the binder, which I think they also use on the Maduro, and then on the Nicaraguan shade grown, that's the wrapper, and then I forget what they did with the binder.
Cameroon. There's a Cameroon in some of it, isn't it? Maybe
I don't remember, but I know all three have it, but only obviously one of them uses it for the wrapper.
Yeah.
And I think the other two use it as the binder. So it's in all three of the blends. And I have smoked. I smoked all of them. I think I've smoked all of them yet. I know I've smoked Connecticut and the Nicaraguan shade. I'm trying to remember if I smoked the Maduro. Actually, I might not have smoked the Maduro yet, but I've definitely smoked a couple of the other two. And yeah, it's different from I think what most people expect from a Perdomo. But again, at the same time, it has the same feel. And until you smoke one, I guess that might sound strange to you. Maybe it doesn't, but until you actually smoke one of the legacies, if you're a regular Perdomo smoker, if you're just very familiar with their products, I think you'll agree. And I'm sure there's people who will be like, I don't like them, and it's too different. But everyone has their opinion. But
you, like, maybe this would be a question we ask him privately and have it on the show.
yeah,
I mean, it had that barrel age taste, which a lot of their tobacco they age in barrels. I'm wondering if that is the case for the legacy as well, because it had like for instance, like the Perdomo Habano, it had that.
the bourbon barrel aged.
It had that oak, that really strong oak. And I'm just curious if that's the process that they're using for their filler tobacco.
That's a good question, because I'm trying to think back, and I don't remember.
I don't think we got into the filler tobacco, like how that was being handled. I think he said what it was, but we didn't get into the curing and fermentation of that. So
Yeah.
I'm unaware of him announcing that. The editorials that I've seen of the release, I haven't seen anything regarding the interior, so I'm unsure of that. I mean, I would guess they do just because of the familiarity I have, but I could be wrong. It is a unique blend. It does smoke differently. It's good. I mean, and I'm hoping that stays consistent, because I mean, oftentimes we see releases come out and the first release is the best, which Perdomo, that's rarely the case. Typically, whenever they do something, it's done right, and it's not going to be like a one-off. Oh, this box was good, this box wasn't good. I mean, we talked about wrapper shades for the Maduro last year, and that was a critique that I had. But again, it's still like if you smoke the Maduro now, it's a great cigar. Maduros are tricky wrappers. There's always an inconsistency of shades. It's just the nature of how that's cured, but Yeah, that Connecticut's very impressive, and I'm going to be looking specifically at that consistent shade of that wrapper going forward, because if that's something that they're consistently putting out, it's phenomenal. Because other than True Connecticut, I have not seen a wrapper that looks like that. So I'm curious how that goes forward. But again, with the Perdomos, if I had to bet money on it, I'd bet it for consistency, because that's what they've earned the title of being one of the most consistent brands in the industry. So I'm excited to see how that cigar goes forward.
At least in my time in the premium cigar space, I can't remember a time when Perdomo had a cigar that really didn't hit. The only one that I've
I can
ever...
do the craft series that didn't hit. The craft beer series, it did not hit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they got rid of that one, by the way. So
Yeah.
I mean again, they tried something, and just people, and we have a good relationship at Twins of 603 Brewery, and I mean we've done a good job kind of getting the beer climate in cigars, but it is so tough to like get those two together. So that's not even
Yeah.
a ding on. It's just like there's a reason why there's not any beer related cigars. There's a reason for that, and it's not any fault of Perdomo. It's just that it just doesn't work. Historically, it's just not a good solution there. So
The only other one that I can think of, and I actually haven't smoked it myself. No. I don't think I've only ever seen it at the Perdomo offices. I've never seen it around. And I don't think I've actually had it. So this isn't even coming from me. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. But the only thing I've ever, outside of that, the only thing I ever heard that was like less than favorable was the I'm trying to think of what they call it, unless is it the Perdomo, like the tour blend? They do like a blend like for
yes.
the factory tour
Yep.
blend.
Yep.
Again, I don't think I've ever smoked it, but from the few people who have, I remember it was less than favorable. Now, outside of that, there's no other cigar that comes to mind where I've ever really heard anything that was less than this is great. So I think that's, and even if, if that is the general consensus, I don't know. I feel like it's a line that doesn't, it's not really a popular enough line that everyone's smoking all the time, where, most Perdomo smokers are smoking plenty of other things. I think that's a pretty good streak right there. And and consistency wise, look, they won Cigar of the Year last year. They have with their 30th anniversary Sungrown. And look, it's too early to tell, and there's some solid competition, but Perdomo legacy so far, roughly, as I've said before, it's at this point, if I was to start doing the list today, it's a very strong contender towards the top of the list. And, we'll see how it goes, but, I'm not ruling it out. I mean, we could have our first back-to-back. And that's not a hint or anything. Like, don't take that with, like, oh, is that... No, there's a bunch of cigars that I'm like also very, very, very excited about that I want to see at the top of the list. But just for the sake of the argument, yes. I mean, once again, they have a strong lead, with some peers, but over the general, yeah.
I'm going to try to show the wrapper. I probably won't be able to do it justice because I don't take it out of the cello. This is one of my review cigars, and being in the cello is for the initial aroma. When I smell the cigar, I don't want it to be out of the cello because that's how it comes. So I can try to, I'm not going to try to do it. We'll do it down the road because I don't want to. It doesn't do it justice because of the reflection of the cellophane.
Such a perfectionist. But I was going to say, speaking of Perdomo, we should do our Perdomo trivia segment. Which is once again brought to you by Perdomo Cigars, featuring our Cigar of the Year, the 2024 Smokin Tabacco Cigar of the Year, the Perdomo 30th Anniversary Sun-Grown Epicure. You can buy them at the number2guyscigars.com. Last week you weren't on. I had Eddie, and I did the trivia. And I watched him struggle just the way I do, and I suddenly felt better about myself. I said, wow, it's not just me. You know, some of these questions, they really catch you off guard, and they make you feel stupid. I'm just gonna say it. Whatever. I get through it.
Yeah, I like being the one that questions because, like, when it comes to the legal field, there's a lot of stuff I can just kind of hit off if I'm asked it. But when it comes to, like, your general, like, Wednesday Applebee's, trivia night questions, I bat under 500 for those questions. So I'm not good at random trivia. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little potpourri tonight. I'm gonna go a little all over the place.
If it's pop, I will say when it comes to trivia, pop culture is probably where I shine the most.
That's why I avoid. Because my goal is not to make you look good here, man.
I know, so you always avoid it.
Maybe one of these days we'll do like a Sokka impersonation for trivia. I'll do like a Sokka. I'll act like I'm Sokka and I'll ask some Sokka trivia. Maybe that'll be something down the road for a Sokka.
Honestly, that gave me a great idea. We should do that for next month. We should have people do Sokka impersonations. And they got to submit they can either put it online and tag us, they can submit it to it, whatever. You got to make a video, do a solid Sokka impersonation, and you get it to us somehow, knowing full well we're going to play them on the show. Keep that in mind. And the best one wins. I think that's what we should do for June.
I think that's a good one. I think
yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, we should do that for June. That would be epic. That would be certainly epic. But anyway, what do you got for us?
All right, so we're gonna go. This one you should be able to get this one, but maybe you won't.
I hate when you do that because then I don't, and then I just feel dumb. Like, I expected better of you, and it's like, man, I let you down.
Here we go. So, which dog breed was traditionally kept by monks in the Swiss Alps to find lost travelers?
Okay, there's one that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if it's the answer, but I do know that this breed is connected to monks because my parents have one. And I remember my mom told me the story, but I don't know if it's the same. Would it be the Tibetan Terrier?
No.
Okay.
The name of the dog kind of gives away its connection to monks.
Trying to think. The name of the dog. Can you read the question again, just so I can hear it?
Which dog breed was traditionally kept by monks in the Swiss Alps to find lost travelers?
Swiss Alps. Monks, Swiss Alps, lost travelers.
It doesn't even matter. They're monks, right? So the name of the dog, you can connect to a monk.
Why, is it called a monk something?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it's like a religious title. I'll give you the dog's initials. How about that? It's
sure.
2 words. The initials is SB.
Okay. SB.
When I say it, you're gonna like throw something.
Is it a common breed that like people have?
Yeah.
Our first one's a Siberian Husky, but that's not it. That's it. SB. I don't know. I got a fold on this one.
Saint Bernard.
Really? I did not know that. I had a Saint Bernard when I was a kid. Massive dog. Saint Bernard. Really? I didn't know that. Yeah, we had one growing up. And she didn't live super long because she ended up getting cancer in the leg. But I remember we got her from a breeder. I want to say it was up here somewhere, or not here, but like it was up in either New Hampshire or Maine or something like that. And I remember the person that the litter, the people who bred them, who we got it from. I guess the father of that litter was like the largest Saint Bernard in the country, or it was like I don't know, it was one of the biggest Saint Bernards like ever recorded. And I remember being like, wow, I mean, these dogs are big as it is. And then I think my grandmother, I think, had one too. When I was really little. But yeah, St. Bernards are majestic dogs. They will drool a lot if you don't have the jowls done. But yeah, they are great dogs.
This one, I think, I'm not gonna say the. I think you should get it. What is the only bird that can fly backwards?
Oh, that's random. Fly backwards?
Yep.
Is it a popular bird or is it like a lesser known bird?
It's popular. It's very common.
I mean, at this point, for me, it would just be a bunch of stabs in the dark. Flies. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a bird flying backwards and really imprinted on my memory. A seagull?
You fucking kidding me?
I don't know. It's a random, like a crow. I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Is it more of a majestic bird, like a hawk or an eagle?
No.
Didn't think so. Trying to think of like no. I don't know. A robin? I don't know. I don't know. I'm really stumped on that one. It's so random. Flies backwards. I don't think I've ever seen a bird fly backwards. What is it?
You giving up? It's a hummingbird.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. See, this is why I hate this.
That's why I.
Well, because they can. Yeah, no. Once you say it and I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right. What else?
I'm trying to get a good pop culture question, but there's just really not good ones.
Oh, come on. There's a lot of pop culture trivia out there. You're just not looking hard enough. You're doing it on purpose. I swear it to be true, Patrick. Oh, also. I have an answer to your earlier question, but I'll wait till after we're done with this.
Here's pop culture. I guess. No, maybe it's not. What year did TikTok launch?
2016.
You're so close. You're 1 year off. You think it's under or over?
At that point, I'm gonna go 2015.
17.
Really?
I mean, yeah. You were close. That was close enough, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That one too.
Yeah. I mean, I did some quick thinking, and I'm like, I mean, it was around before 2020, so I know it's definitely there. I'm like, I remember it being around well before 19, 18, but it wasn't around when I was in high school. So I'm like, I knew it had to be mid to late 2010s. So it was a good guess. But see, I'm better at that stuff. I don't know. I try. Question.
How about this?
Oh no.
I'll do one more pop culture question.
Okay.
Just I think you might get. I don't know if you're into this stuff, but just because he's all the rave right now in the WWE.
Well, you're already kind of. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. As much as I'm not a big fan of the WWE, I do know, strangely, a decent amount about it. So, all right, go ahead.
How many titles has John Cena won?
How did I know you were going to say John Cena? Five.
No.
I don't watch wrestling. I don't know if that's a big number or not. I'm just guessing. I know the people, but I don't watch wrestling. It's hard for me. I'm just going to say it. I know people get into it. And if you're a big wrestling guy, I no disrespect. I none whatsoever. I mean, for me, I don't know. I can't get into it. It's not real. I mean, I don't know. I can't. I can't. But I will never shit on someone and be like, "Oh, you watch wrestling." I'll never do that. But for me, I can't. Nicole, actually likes watching it. She don't watch it all the time, but like Nicole, like if it's on, she's like, oh, like she gets more excited about it than I do actually. But I don't know. How many titles has he won? I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how. Like, isn't like every one of their big fights like a title, like the SmackDown and WrestleMania and all those other ones? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess that's the thing. I don't know much about that to make an educated, good guess. How many does he have?
21.
21. Okay, so what does that mean? Like, he gets a title for like every one of those big matches?
How many titles has he won? So I mean, I don't know. It's how many have you won?
See, when you say titles, I'm thinking like a baseball team, like how many World Series championships they have. You know what I mean? But I feel like in wrestling, it's different. It's not like one big thing.
Every time you win a belt.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how. Like, what is it? How often do they give away a belt? Is it like, every fight?
I don't know. It's like they do title matches.
I don't follow wrestling, so it's I don't know. It's hard for me because I'm like I don't know.
It's so different than like I guess like the UFC. If you have like the lightweight champion, like whenever they win a title, it counts, and they carrying it doesn't matter. But whenever you win one,
yeah, no, now it makes sense because I watch more UFC. So yeah, I guess it's true.
Maybe I'll do UFC questions next week.
I mean, I'm not proficient with the UFC either, but I know enough about it.
Maybe we'll find something you're proficient at. I'll ask you electrical questions or something.
Oh! No, that would be interesting.
I'll take the code book out. How about that? We'll do
the
that.
fact that you know about the code book is impressive. A lot of people don't. They know about, it's got to be done to code, but they don't actually know what that means. Yes, there's an actual book. The NFPA 70.
I'm getting those questions wrong. It's you might lose some clients.
So here's in my defense as an electrician, like the NFPA 70 comes out every 3 years. It's on a rotating cycle because it gets updated, and the code book is very large. It's very detailed. Now, there are some of us who know every line of that book, but the majority of people don't know everything about it. There's people who know a lot about it, because we're always doing stuff, but I don't, like, if you open the book and you went to like 410.5b, that like a random one, like I might not know, like I know chapter 4 there's usually like motors and stuff like that. Like I'd probably get close to it, but I probably wouldn't. It depends on what you pick out. I don't know. I could probably get close to it, but that would be interesting. Although I don't know. I've studied the code enough in my lifetime. I don't know if I want to do it again, but maybe. I don't know. That could be interesting. We'll see. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not telling you no. But that would be interesting. No, for me, it's more like movies, shows, music, persons of interest, stuff like that is probably what I'm the most proficient at. No, I'm not saying I know everything, but what I have the best chance with, so to speak. And then, as always, before we wrap up the show, we have news brought to you by Micallef Cigars, the new color series, black, blue, red, purple, and I believe the green coming next year. I just had it right in front of me and I lost it. Oh yeah. Hoyo de Monterey expands core lineup with shade. Hoyo de Monterey is following up the success of the Rojo and the Oscuro with a third offering in its revitalized core lineup. The new smoke, called Hoyo de Monterey Shade, features a Honduran shade wrapper over Honduran binder and filler tobacco. This Honduran Puro is crafted by expert artisans at the famous Hatza factory in Danley, Honduras. It will be available in 3 sizes: a 4.5 by 50 Rothschild, a 6 by 52 Toro, and the 6 by 60 Gigante. Tasting notes include smooth hints of earth and grass. It will begin shipping on June 2nd. All sizes are sold in boxes of 10. The suggested retail price per cigar ranges from $5.99 to $8.49. The box and band art match the style of last year's releases from Hoyo de Monterey's Rojo and Oscuro. Yeah, General's been on a tear the last few years. A few years ago, I swear they released like 60 cigars. It was insane. I remember that.
Yeah.
Coop and I used to joke about it. It was like every week there was a press release for a new cigar, almost quite literally. And the sad thing is we were talking recently, and it came up, and I remember he said, "Yeah, do you remember where half of those cigars are now?" And I'm like, "Come to think of it, no." Like, it's true. Like, there was a lot of stuff. Like, they had their. Do you remember when they released their flavor, the FLVR line of cigars?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I mean that's a.
Don't see them anywhere.
Well, it's. I could tell you why. But we won't get into that here. It's that was a brand bashing. There were numerous issues with that release, and I will consider if I'm able to talk about that on the show.
Save it for Saturday. We'll bring it up Saturday. That's the best. That's the best place. That's the best.
Yeah,
place.
I think that would be the best one to do it. Yeah, I know exactly what happened.
Yeah. But and that's not the only one. But just in general, like there was a lot of stuff that they released, and then it was like, I look back like just like a couple years, and I'm like, oh yeah, what happened to that? Like, there's even stuff from brands they acquired, and brands disappeared. It was like, oh, like remember Royal Agio? Yeah, whatever happened there? Just gone.
I think it's funny. I think this is another spare note topic, but it's comparing like Scandinavian tobacco with General versus Forge, and how Forge takes more of like that niche consumer approach opposed to General. That's more of like a very
it's more of a legacy
broad
brand collection. Yeah, you get a lot of the brands under General are
different. Like almost every Forged release, I feel, is directed at a tighter niche consumer opposed to General, where it seems like they're trying to make cigars for like specific market. It's like
I know what you're getting at. I know what you're getting at. Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Yeah, that's a spare notes topic because we're running out of time. But yeah, that's definitely something we can get into either this week or next week.
I'm assuming you were going to say it earlier. Did you reach out to Nick Perdomo? Or did you get an answer?
Yes, I did. Before we wrap up, this will be the last thing. I had asked him about bourbon barrel aging. He said, yeah, an additional 10 months of bourbon barrel aging on the Nicaraguan shade-grown tobacco, 8 months for Connecticut, 14 months for Maduro.
All right, so my palate is true. I picked up on it. Yeah, it's a very good cigar.
I'm not surprised. It's just that it wasn't. I feel like we didn't really talk about it a lot, so it's just one of those like,
very
oh yeah,
common to do that. So it's not, I mean, it's a good guess for me. It wasn't, I was like 90% gonna get it right because they do it for a lot of their cigars, if not all of them. So
if I remember correctly, too, I think they use Buffalo Trace's barrels exclusively.
Yeah, I don't know. I never inquired as
I'm pretty sure they use barrels from Buffalo Trace. If I remember correctly, that came up, and a few years ago when Nick Jr., the father, was on the show, I believe we talked about that, and I believe he said they use Buffalo Trace barrels, which you and I like Buffalo Trace, so I always thought, oh, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's just one of the. It's not that I doubted it. It's just we didn't really talk about it, so I wanted to confirm. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But anyway, that's really our show for this week. Kind of light. We will be back Saturday night for Spare Notes. Expect that to be a much bigger show. And I think even next week we're gonna do Spare Notes again too. So could be a lot of Spare Notes coming your way. Trying to make up for some lost ground. But anyway, that's our show. Head to smokintobacco.com for more news, reviews, and updates from the cigar industry. And we'll see you Saturday night. Take care.